The first time I heard Michael Rosen speak about 25 years ago, he was pulling very funny faces, I'm sorry to say this, Michael, and reading and singing a children's book called Little Rabbit Foo-Foo. And if we're very lucky, we may hear about Rabbit Foo-Foo later on. More recently, I heard him give the 2009 Philippa Pierce Memorial Lecture, and currently he presents Word of Mouth, a magazine programme for Radio 4 looking at the English language and the way in which we use it. Michael was Children's Laureate here in 2007 to 2009, and if I read a list of all his other awards, there wouldn't be time to hear him speak this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Rosen.
Thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you all, distinguished delegates. I must apologise, I'm ill. Well, not exactly ill, but, you know, one of those things that you get. I didn't know what it was. I was in France just recently, and I went to the chemist. Those of you who are from France will know that you don't have to go to a doctor, you can just go to the chemist. And he explained that I had an encombrement bronchite, and I immediately felt much better that it had a great big long name like that, because I just thought it was a cough. I don't know how that translates into Spanish. But anyway, so I have an encombrement bronchite, so if I suddenly start coughing and spewing and worse, I apologize. I take it as normal that we as human beings migrate, and that is one of the things that human beings do and have always done. Everything that we know about the fossil record, everything we know about human beings is that we keep moving. And we walk and we travel and we move into different places. Sometimes this is hostile, and that part of the history of mankind, humankind, is that that's what we have done. Other times it's out of necessity, other times it's for pleasure, for many different reasons. But that is what we do, we migrate. And what is sad, and of course you heard a wonderfully eloquent description earlier about all this, that what's quite sad is that politicians try to manipulate this situation in a variety of ways. And sometimes they manipulate it by pretending that certain things didn't happen. Sometimes they manipulate it by suggesting that somehow or other it's a bad thing that human beings migrate, while at the same time trying to encourage it. So we get duplicity on all sides. And here we are in the world of children and education trying to make sense of it, sometimes in classrooms, obviously, full of people who are the children of migrants themselves, whilst denying that somehow or other that, in fact, somewhere or another, we are all migrants. So I'm speaking to you, obviously, in a country, Britain, that has a long, long story of migration, not only inwards, but outwards. The totally shameful history of slavery, beginning in Shakespeare's time in this country, has never really been fully told, nor indeed the full diversity of the British Isles and the way in which it has developed through that diversity. So on the one hand, we have that story to tell, and we also have to tell this ignominious story of how the British were involved abroad. I myself am a member of what is sometimes called a minority. I'm not too pleased about the word minority, because in a sense, we're all minorities. So, but I am what's called a minority. I'm Jewish in background. And what I thought I would do today is read to you some of the things that I've written down through the years, reflecting on that. Just a few words before I start about that, which is that in every country where Jews have settled, different kinds of Judaisms and different kinds of Jewishnesses occur. One of the big fallacies about minorities and talking about minorities is that if you're in a minority, it's assumed that you're a blob, that you're all part of the same thing. So people of Caribbean origin experience this when in the latest wave, Caribbeans and people of West African origin have been coming to Britain for centuries, but what is sometimes called the more recent migration, starting with Windrush, the boat, the Windrush, is that Caribbeans who came to this country were lumped together as West Indians, as if they were just one culture. But then many of us, white people like me in origin, have learnt and been taught to learn that, of course, the Caribbean cultures, there are many, many different Caribbean cultures from the different islands and indeed from Latin America, and that when these people came from the Caribbean into Britain, there was an enormous diversity, and then a new community is being set up. So it's always dynamic, always moving, and to try and grasp that is something that sadly most of our politicians and indeed people involved in education and talk about education, they appear very, very reluctant to ever grapple with or become interested in. And as you've also heard reference, we've had the shameful speech from our Prime Minister. I'll do him just the one credit. He didn't actually say that multiculturalism failed. He said state multiculturalism failed. We don't do our side any favours by saying he actually said multiculturalism has failed. What he meant, which I also dispute, was that any form of state assistance for multiculturalism was a disaster. That was what this kind of speech he made, but of course, as we know from the speeches of all racists of all times, it's very important to be misunderstood. But this is one of the key things. And when people say, but you meant that, they said, no, I didn't. And so it's very important to be misunderstood and slippery. That's one of the key things. So I thought I would read you some things. Maybe if I begin with this, I write mostly a kind of prose poetry. So those of you for whom English is not a first language, you don't have to worry that things are going to get lost in rhyme and so on, because quite often I don't rhyme. Here's a true story. I got into a cab and the driver said, I can't stand it anymore. It's doing me head in. That's a London expression for meaning you're going crazy. It's doing me head in. I used to love Walthamstow. It was like a village round here. It's full of foreigners. I'm going, he said. I wondered where. But he said nothing. So I said, where? Spain, he said. A true story. The microcosmic politics there is that some British people who go to Spain think they're going to Britain. And in fact, they set up little Britons across France and Spain, and for some strange reason, quite rarely seem to think that it's necessary to learn either French or Spanish. But at least they got away from all those foreigners. My own background. For those of you who don't know London, there are quite a few references here. I'll ask you to bear with me. But I was asked to read some poems at an event about 18 months ago in a part of London called the East End, where the waves of Ashkenazi Jews from Poland and Russia first came when they came to Britain between 1860 and 1905, 1907, I think, when the Immigration Act came in and blocked it off. They came to the East End, and that's where my parents came from. And of course, like many migrants, there were key moments when they were under threat from fascists, from Nazi sympathizers, led by, in this country, a man called Oswald Mosley, who was a direct sympathizer, and indeed his family were quite keen to intermarry with Hitler's family. There was a demonstration there just on the very site where my parents lived and worked and went to school about 2 years ago, and I was asked to read some poems, and I thought I must write a new poem because it was in part to both stop the fascists marching, but also to commemorate the fact that 75 years ago, the East End of London blocked off the chance for Oswald Mosley to march through London's East End. He was dressed in paramilitary outfit and wanted to march through the East End at the head of the British Union of Fascists. And so I was asked to read a poem, and I thought I would write a new one, so I wrote this about my parents and for my parents. You, Connie Ruby Isakovsky, from Globe Road in Bethnal Green. You, Harold Rosen, from Nelson Street, Whitechapel. You, Connie, with your mother and father from Romania and Poland. You, Harold, with your family from Poland. you Connie, you Harold, your families working in the schmutter trade. Sorry, sometimes I use Yiddish, that's the language of the Ashkenazi Jews, that was their Mama Loshen, their ordinary language. It's a Germanic tongue mixed in with Slavonic. You families working in the schmutter trade, rag trade, hats, caps, jackets and gowns, hats, caps, jackets and gowns. You both saw Hitler on the Pathé News. You both saw Hitler blaming the Jews. You both collected for Spain, collecting for Spain when Franco came. When round the tenements the whisper came, Mosley wants to march here through the East End. So what should it be? To Trafalgar Square to support Spain? No pasarán. Or to Gardener's Corner to support Whitechapel? They shall not pass. No pasarán. Round the tenements the whisper came, fight here in Whitechapel. The whisper came, winning here, we support Spain there. These are the streets where we live. These are the streets where we go to school. These are the streets where we work. No pasarán, they shall not pass. You Connie, you Harold, went to Gardener's Corner. You went to Cable Street. You piled chairs on the barricades. The mounted police charged you. A stranger took you indoors to escape a beating. And thousands, hundreds of thousands came here, fighting Mosley, supporting Spain, thinking of Nazi Germany, and Mosley did not pass. You, Connie, you, Harold, said, today the bombs on Guernica in Spain, tomorrow the bombs on London here, and you were bombed, the same planes, the same bombs, landing in the same streets where you had said, no pasarán, they shall not pass, and the bodies piled up across the world, million after million after million. You, Connie, your cousins in Poland, taken to camps, wiped out. You, Harold, your uncles and aunts in France and Poland, taken to camps, wiped out. But you, Connie, my mother, you, Harold, my father, you survived, you lived, we were born, we grew. You, mother, you, father, told us these things. I write these things, and today I tell you these things. We remember here together, thanks to you, and we say, no pasarán, they shall not pass. Thank you. So I write about different things to do with contemplating both the society we're in and, if you like, the cultures we find ourselves in, and a way that shifts all the time. And I was working with some children, and we made up something a bit together, and me too, and it went like this. It's like a kind of migration rap, a migration blues, if you like, and it goes like this. You know, you gotta go, no time to grieve. You just got to leave, get away from the pain, on the move again. You got to move it to prove it to move it. Take the train, catch a plane, make the trip in a ship. Take a hike, ride a bike, go by car, going far. Use your feet on the street, get stuck in a truck. You got to move it to prove it to move it. Then you arrive, and you're alive. You arrive, you're alive. What you leave behind won't leave your mind, but home is where you find it. 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 Thank you. One of the fascinating things about culture is that we all know what it is, but we can't define it. It's just there, and sometimes people say it's in a gesture, sometimes it's in an expression, sometimes it seems to be so small, and then people come on the television and tell us that it's opera or that it's the flag, and we know somehow or other it's to do with the way we live, but we can't quite put our fingers on it. And exploring some of this stuff, people say, it's part of this anti-multiculturalism move, is this somehow suggests that if you talk about your culture, that this will put off other people, or alternatively, if you think about someone else's culture, somehow you lose some of your own. What a strange idea that if you're interested in something, you lose something. And yet this is, if I'm interested in African culture or Middle Eastern culture, somehow or other, I become less. What a peculiar idea. But if I think about my own parents and quite the way they were, this is one of the pictures that comes up. For those of you from North America, corned beef in this country, in Britain, is not what you have in America, corned beef. Corned beef you have in America is this very tasty stuff that is the beef from bullocks or steers who are raised on corn. The kind of stuff we eat that is called corned beef, I won't recommend anyone to experiment with it, but you can go to the local supermarket. It comes in a tin, and you open the tin, which itself is incredibly difficult to do, and takes about a week. And the stuff that comes out is a strange kind of pink, greasy stuff, which probably the best thing to do is to fry it for a very long time until it's slightly burnt. But anyway, my parents didn't do what Jews call keep kosher. That's to say, abide by the religious laws. That's because they were what Hitler called Jewish communists. They were parents as well, incredibly, but so they didn't keep kosher anyway. So here we are, because cans of corned beef, believe me, are not kosher. Why does Mum keep cans of corned beef in the cupboard? Not just 1 or 2 cans, stacks of them. Does she think that one day we'll have a corned beef party? Does she think that people will come over and she'll say, surprise, pull back a cloth, and there in front of everyone the table will be full of cans of corned beef? And then everyone will sit around opening cans of corned beef, and we'll sit and eating it saying, corned beef? This is nice. Nice party. Or does she think that one day all the shops will be closed and we won't be able to buy any food, but we'll be all right because we'll be able to eat corned beef every day for months and months? And people will be jealous of us and they'll be queuing up outside our house shouting, let us in. We want corned beef. I don't like corned beef. I don't like the way there are these chunks of fat sitting on it. And when you eat it, it sticks to the roof of your mouth. And now I think of it, I've never seen Mum eating it either. Why does Mum keep cans of corned beef in the cupboard? Once there was a terrible disease in the country where corned beef comes from. It was an outbreak of typhoid, they said. In the newspapers and on the TV, they kept saying to us, don't eat the corned beef. Don't eat the corned beef. Mum, she went to the cupboard, took down one of the cans and said, better not open that till the typhoid outbreak's over. Why does Mum keep cans of corned beef in the cupboard? I don't know. I'm not even prepared to say that's a Jewish thing, but I don't know. There's a chorus to this one. It's don't drown. So all you have to say is don't drown. If you want to say it in your language, you can say it in your language. 1, 2, 3. Practice swimming for a long, long time. Practice shouting help. Keep the water out. Call for help. If you see the water rising, leave. If you think you're sinking, grab something. If you think there's no way out, you're probably wrong and there is a way out, find it. If you think you're stuck, probably you're not. If you think you can't go on, probably you can. That's just a bit of advice there. Occasionally I get a bit moralistic, you know, I don't know. As I say, my parents, they were both brought up in homes and at a time when their first language was this language, Yiddish. Those of you from North America and indeed this country will probably be quite bored of Jews coming and trying to explain to you what Yiddish words mean. Each Yiddish word takes us about an hour to describe it, and at the end of it you have no idea what it is, and so on. And my parents, they mostly spoke Yiddish when they didn't want me and my brother to know what it was they were saying, or alternatively my father used to mutter strange sort of imprecations and swear words under his breath. And my mother would say, "Don't say that." And of course we'd say, "What did he say?" And mother would say, "Don't tell them." So I have a whole set of disgusting phrases that my dad died 2 or 3 years ago, aged 89, and I would say to him, you know, even as he was very ill, I'd say, "Oh, Harold," I called him by his first name, I'd say, "Harold, that one you used to say that went, what was that one?" He said, "Oh, that one." "Oh, no, I can't tell you that." I said, "Father, I'm over 60, you're over 80, you know, you could say, all right, I'll tell you." But when we were kids, it would go like this. My mum and dad can speak a language I don't really understand. I know some of the words, but not all of them. So my dad plays games with the words like this. He's cooking some beans in some kind of mix, probably with corned beef now I think about it, in a frying pan. "What's that?" I say. "Chazababki," he says. "What's chazababki?" I say. "Tiger's eggs," he says. "What are tiger's eggs?" I say. "Chazababki," he says. That was how helpful he was. And I should point out, he was a linguist. Some of you will be very lucky because you were either brought up by two parents who worked, or you yourself are in a relationship in which both of you work. And my parents were like that because they were both teachers. And so what used to happen when I got in as a teenager, that they would arrive in sometimes after me, and they went in for what I now can see were what I'd call a tiredness auction. This you'll recognize. So this comes with a slight Yiddisher intonation. Dad says, "Phew, oi, I'm tired." And Mum says, "You're tired?" "I'm tired." Dad says, "Hey, I've never ever been as tired as this." And Mum says, "You don't know what tired is." "I'll tell you what tired is. It's me. That's what tired is." Dad says, "I'm tired all over. It's my legs. It's my head." Mum says, "My tired isn't just inside. Everywhere's tired." Dad says, "I haven't even begun to tell you how tired I am." And Mum says, "I know how tired you are. You've told me, and you know something? You telling me you're tired makes me tired." Dad says, "And that's it. Huh? That's it. No one understands how tired I am. No one listens. In the end, I get tired saying I'm tired." Mum says, "What you don't know is that before I was this tired, I didn't know a person could be this tired. If I had known then how tired I was going to be, I wouldn't have let myself get this tired." And I say, because I was a teenager, anyone round here tired? the Yiddish for grandmother and grandfather is Bubba and Zayda, in at least the form of Yiddish spoken over here. I think in America, people tend to say Bobby and Zaidi, which is quite an interesting thing in the sense that, of course, these languages that migrants bring and take, they evolve immediately. When people land, instantly evolving, absorbing, and changing pronunciation. So for me, it's Bubba and Zayda. Say in America, Bobby and Zaidi. On Sundays, we go over to see Bubba and Zayda, and Bubba takes me to the bagel shop to buy bagels. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. Then we take them home, we sit down to eat the bagel, and Zayda says, "Save the whole for me." So I eat a bit of the bagel, then I say, "Do you want the whole now, Zayda?" And he says, "There's too much bagel round the whole. I just want the whole." So I eat some more bagel, and I say, "Do you want the whole now, Zayda?" He says, "There's too much bagel, I just want the whole." So I eat some more, until all that's left is a tiny, tiny little ring of bagel round the hole, and I say, "Do you want the whole now, Zayda?" He says, "I can still see some bagel round the hole." So then I eat the tiny, tiny ring of bagel round the hole, and there is no bagel left. And Zayda looks at me and says, "So, you couldn't save me the whole?" My mother said she wasn't going to go on another camping trip until we got a better frying pan. I'm not going camping ever again with a frying pan without a handle. Who ever heard of cooking with a frying pan without a handle? If you did more of the cooking, you wouldn't want to cook with a frying pan without a handle. Everyone else who goes camping goes with a nice frying pan. But when we go camping, we go with a frying pan without a handle. It's typical of your father. He goes out, he gets a new tent, he gets a new lamp, he gets new sleeping bags. But I'm cooking with a frying pan without a handle. I've sat there for hours and hours trying to fry onions, trying to fry liver, trying to fry bacon and eggs. I told you we didn't keep kosher. Trying to fry bacon and eggs, and I'm trying to do it all with a frying pan without a handle. There are good frying pans these days. I've seen them. People go camping with them. Not rich people, people like us. They sit there every night with their nice frying pans, having a nice time. But what have we got? Exactly. You could show more sympathy next time, all right? Some of you will know that there was a thing called the Aldermaston March. The Aldermaston March was against nuclear weapons, against Britain having what's laughably known as an independent nuclear deterrent. In other words, it's not independent, it's not nuclear, and it's not a deterrent, but never mind. That's the politics over. And this is what happened. So this was called the Aldermaston March because we used to march from an atomic weapons base. I told you my parents were Jewish communists. That gives you a lot of stereotypes to play with. So this is what happened. I ran away from home. I said, I'm going on the Aldermaston March to ban the bomb. They said, this is out of the question. The boys were sugar, mad, crazy. My mother said, where will you stay? You'd have nothing to eat. You don't know anyone. What would you eat? You're not going. Harold, say something. He's too young. Look at him. He's packing. You can't go without a spare pair of guckers or trousers. How can he carry a bag like that for 20 miles a day? Stop him, Harold. What would you do in the evening? You need to eat. Huh? You get ill if you don't eat. Take a tin of beans. You can always eat beans. Harold, stop it. There's the chicken. Take the chicken. If you're taking a tin of beans, take two. He's 13, Harold. Go next year. Wait till next year. They won't have banned the bomb by then, believe me. There'll be another march. Go on that one. You must keep eating fresh fruit. And you like dates. Yeah, he's always liked dates, hasn't he, Harold? Just squeeze them in down the side of the bag. Couldn't he wait till the last day when we'll be there? We can all go to Trafalgar Square together. Harold, have you got the chicken? Just because it's Easter doesn't mean it's warm. It can snow at Easter. Wear the string vest, yeah? Who's organised the coaches? Do we know these people, Harold? 1 orange. Take 5. And raisins. He's 13. It's ridiculous. He can't go. Keep the chicken wrapped. Yeah? Phone us if you need more food. Goodbye. That was how my mum stopped me from going on the Aldermaston March. That was. You want me to read some more? Yeah, we're doing all right. Okay. So what have we got? I'm just choosing some nice things. So here's one that's not so nice. You can't always be nice, can you? Well, actually, here's one that's quite nice. So there's a dish, if you go to, I've forgotten his name now, but you can get it in New York City. It's called Matzo brei. The matzos are those square biscuits that have got no yeast in. Let me recommend them. They're easily as good as crackers of any sort. In fact, they're better and they're bigger, you see. So anyway, matzos are very nice. My kids insist on calling them matzos to annoy me. Thank you. Isn't it nice having independent children? Anyway, and there's a dish called Matzo brei, which I'm going to incorporate into how this is, into this poem. When Mum goes to evening classes, my dad says, "Don't tell your mother. Let's have Matzo brei." She always says, "Don't give the boys that schmaltzy stuff, greasy stuff. It's bad for them. So don't tell her. All right?" So he breaks up the matzos, puts them into water to soften them up, then he fries them till they're glazed and crisp. "It tastes best like this," he says, "fried in Hühnerschmalz," that's chicken fat, "skimmed off the top of the chicken soup. But olive oil will do." Then he beats up 3 eggs and pours it on over the frying matzos till it's all cooked. It tastes brilliant. We love it. Then we wash everything up, absolutely everything, and we go to bed. Next day, Mum says to us, "What did your father cook you last night?" Silence. "What did your father cook you last night?" "Oh, stuff. Egg on toast, I think." I called that one "Don't Tell Your Mother," but I think I've changed the title to "Do You Lie to Your Mother?" Terrible split loyalty thing, isn't it? Don't you think? Fancy him putting us into that situation. Still, for Matzo brei, it was worth it. "I went to see my father's cousin Michael. He was born in Poland. When the Nazis came in the West, his parents put him on a train going east, and he never saw them again. They died in a Nazi death camp. When the Russians came in the East, he was arrested, put on a train, and sent to one of the Russian camps, but he lived. When I went to see him, he wouldn't tell me any of this. When he went out of the room, his wife said he can't bear to talk about it. When he came back into the room, he said, 'Tell him the story about my cousin Leosa.' So they told me the story about cousin Leosa. When the Nazis came in the West, Leosa pretended to be a Christian. She put a crucifix round her neck, then she fetched her grandmother's brooch and took the diamonds off it. She took the soles off the heels of her shoes, put the diamonds inside the heels, and put the soles back on. She thought if there were going to be any problems, she would be able to sell them. Then she went west into Germany. In Germany, she worked in a factory. No one ever found out that she was Jewish. At the end of the war, she couldn't face going back to Poland. Her parents, all her friends, and all her relations had been taken away to the camps and killed. She went to find her brother Naphtali. She found him. She told him how she had lived right through the war with diamonds in the heels of her shoes. I always knew if ever I got into difficulty, I could have sold them and maybe paid someone to help me. And here they are, she said, the very diamonds themselves. And Naphtali said, "Where did you get the diamonds from, Leosa?" And Leosa said, "From our grandmother's brooch." So Naphtali said, "Listen carefully, Leosa. Many years ago, our grandmother wrote to me. She said that grandfather's business wasn't doing too well, and so to help out, she had taken the diamonds off her brooch and put in glass ones instead, and sold off the diamonds. She didn't tell anyone about it, but she wrote to me to get it off her chest. You went through the whole war with nothing more than bits of glass in the heels of your shoes." And they told me that story, and for some reason or other, I've never put it on the end, but when it got to the end, the room was completely quiet, and then somebody said, It just goes to show what you can do with a bit of confidence. Bizarre. Yes, thank you. Yes. Occasionally, I've had encounters with Judaism. My uncle was what is known in Yiddish as frum, that's to say religious, but without wishing to be disrespectful in any way, as we know, a lot of religious ceremonies, one sort or another, are not exactly as sort of fluent and as perfect as maybe were once envisaged. So there's some little bits of Yiddish here. Shul is the Yiddish word for the synagogue. The chuppah is the canopy that you see in New York comedies where Jews get married under the chuppah. Bubba, you know already. And the shamus is the person in the shul who goes around sorting stuff out. Uncle Ronnie got married in shul. My dad was the best man. There they all were standing under the chuppah, and the rabbi is talking, and Bubba is watching from her wheelchair, and it's time for my dad to hand Ronnie the ring. Out it comes, and just as my dad gives it to him, Ronnie faints. Out cold. Bubba starts crying, everyone in the shul starts talking and tutting, so the bride's brother got his shoulder in tight on Ronnie on one side, and my dad got his shoulder in tight on Ronnie on the other, and the shamus propped him up from behind. And that was how Uncle Ronnie got married. Bubba said later, it's a terrible shame he missed it. True story, true story. Some time ago, one of our politicians, in that helpful way that they often do, not blaming us or anything, said that the trouble with society is that parents don't teach their children the difference between right and wrong. This was a great revelation to those of us who were parents, and then as it happens, a few months later, he had to resign because he had had an affair with a woman. And I think that was all right, but it was the fact that he refused to pay maintenance for the child produced by that relationship. So he was obviously an expert on right and wrong, and it was obviously very helpful to have that advice. But then I thought, did my Jewish communist parents teach me the difference between right and wrong? I nagged my mum and dad for a torch, for a flashlight. Oh, go on, I said. I'd love a torch. One of those ones with the black rubber around them. Oh, go on. Please. It was no good. I wasn't getting anywhere. And then came my birthday. On the table was a big box. In the box, a torch. My dad took it out the box. You see that torch, he says? It's waterproof. That is a waterproof torch. Waterproof. Wow. So that night, I got into the bath and went underwater swimming with it. Breathe in, under the water, switch on, search for shipwrecks and treasure, up, breathe, under again, exploring the ocean floor. Then the torch went out. I shook it and banged it, but it wouldn't go. I couldn't get it to go again. My birthday torch, so I got out, dried myself off, put on my pajamas, went into the kitchen. The torch won't work. It's broken. And my dad says, what do you mean it's broken? It couldn't have just broken. How did it break? I don't know. It just went off. I don't believe it. You ask him a simple question and you never get a simple answer. You must have been doing something with it. No. It just went off. Just try telling the truth, will you? How did it break? I was underwater swimming with it. Are you mad? When I said this torch is waterproof, I meant it keeps the rain off. I didn't mean you could go bloody deep sea diving with it. Ruined, completely ruined. For weeks and weeks he nags us stupid that he wants one of these waterproof torches, and the first thing he does is wreck it. How long did it, Connie? Connie, how long did it last? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? These things cost money, you know, mazuma, money. I felt so rotten. My birthday torch. At the weekend, he says, we're going into Harrow to take the torch back. We walk into the shop. My dad goes up to the man at the counter and says, you see this torch? I bought it from you a couple of weeks ago. It's broken. So the man picks it up. Well, it couldn't have just broken, says the man. How did it break? And my dad says, I don't know, it just went off. Surely you must have been doing something with it. No, says my dad, no. Just went off. Come on, says the man, these torches don't just break down. So I said, well, actually, I was in and I got a hard kick on the ankle from my dad. I was in the, what? All right, in the kitchen, and it went off. So the man said that he would take it out the back to show Len. He came back a few minutes later and said that Len couldn't get it to work either, so he would send it back to the makers. You'll have to have a new one, he says. I should think so too, says my dad. Thank you. Outside the shop, my dad says to me, what's the matter with you? Are you crazy? You were going to tell him all about your underwater swimming fandango, weren't you? Blabbermouth. Anyway, that's how I learnt the difference between right and wrong from my parents. Sometimes satire seems to be the best way to deal with these terrible things. You've already heard about 5, lovely, thank you, that's good, of Islamophobia and what we have to deal with in that respect. And so I wrote this in respect of Islamophobia. I propose, for the sake of consistency, that those countries which ban the veil, in inverted commas, must ban the Santa outfit. It really is preposterous to allow these men to cover up their faces in public places. In our equal society, it shows a complete disregard for equality because it gives Santas a sense of male superiority. Think about it. Only a man can be a Santa. Ban the Santa outfit now. News just in, a child was in a Santa's grotto, and because of the Santa beard covering Santa's face, the child couldn't understand a word of what the Santa was trying to say. The child was upset by this and couldn't be consoled. For how much longer are we going to have to tolerate these people in our midst? Ban the Santa outfit now. These Santas come here with their weird German-American ideas about our traditional English Christmas, with our traditional holly, ivy, Yule log, and old King Cole, and our very own jolly old Father Christmas. And what do? They give us German-American Santa Claus with this ludicrous face-hiding garb, muttering in strange, unintelligible ways to our children. Ban the Santa outfit now. I'm not a racist, but I think there are limits to what we can tolerate before our very own English spirit of toleration is itself threatened. How much longer before we see Santas on every street corner? How much longer before we see Santas all the year round? How much longer before we see young people wanting to dress up as Santas? Ban the Santa outfit now. Some of them are moderate Santas. They wear a small beard. They keep their hoods back. They don't keep saying, ho, 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 every time you talk to them. I'm not against them. It's the full bearded, hooded Santas we've got to look at and ask ourselves, what kind of society do we want? Have we bent over too far in trying to be understanding? Are we going to see a rash of Santas across Britain jabbering away in their little grottos? Shouldn't we be keeping a very close eye on those Santas, noting their movements, finding out if they go back to Santaland, finding out if they go to grottos in Santaland to learn the ways of the Santa? Ban the Santa outfit now, and how many Santas are paid for by local councils? Putting money into the hands of the extreme Santas. I say to you, it's state-subsidized Santa culturalism, and it's failed. People are saying to me when I meet them that it feels like the invasion of an alien force. Did we fight the Second World War for our old traditional English department stores to be invaded by these hooded men in red? Time to take a stand. Ban the Santa outfit now. And thank you. I'll finish with this. I wrote a play called Hackney Streets. I lived in Hackney for 30 odd years, and my Bubba and Zeta lived in Hackney. And I wrote a play called Hackney Streets, and my wife, Emma Louise Williams, made a film based on that play. It's called Under the Cranes, but if you Google my name and I think Hackney Streets or Hackney Voices, there's the text of the film, if you like, on my own website. And it was a way of celebrating Hackney, which has always been an incredibly diverse place with people from all over the world, all over the UK, coming into Hackney. And it's a very complicated situation in the way in which the local council has at times acknowledged it and other times seemed to sort of regret it. So we made a film about that, and it closes with this poem. The bus goes on, and it's full, and it's leaving, and it's laughing, and it's going on, and it's morning, and it's evening, and it's in Punjabi, and it's daytime, and it's full, and it stops, and it's suspicious, and it starts, and it's in Igbo, and it's shouting, and it's shopping, and it's rapping, and it's lit up, and it's dark, and it's shove up, and it's crying, and it's squealing, and it's in Dutch, and it's breaking, and it's in Geordie, and it's at the station, it's skint, it's full of babies, it's full of men, and it's going on, and it's past the Vietnamese cafe, and it's past the tyre depot, and it's past the silver car and its chauffeur, and it's waiting for Sinatra to start up, and it's in patois, and it's chips and vinegar, and it's past the park, and it's full of football, and it's a bellyache, and it's full of jokes, and it's scared, and it's in Arabic, and it's back from school, and it's pushing, and it's raining, and it's angry, and it's full of yesterday, and it's riding under the lights, and it's pissed off, and it's smell of oil, and it's combing, and it's kissing, and it's packets of rice, and it's cassava, and it's over the canal, and it's the baby's bottle, and it's over the railway, and it's under the cranes, and it's in the shadows of the palaces in glass, and it's in Albanian, and it's bleach, and it's the homework in late, and it's spuds, and the hijab, and it's shoulders next to back, next to fronts, and it's revving, and it's too late, and it's too early, and it's not enough, and it's going on, and it's on time, and it's dreaming, and it'll get there today, and it'll get there tomorrow. It'll get there tomorrow. It'll get there tomorrow. Hey, thank you. Thank you very much.